They'll tell you something's wrong with the man who sits alone, who walks alone, who doesn't flood his life with friends and noise. But what if I told you that man isn't lonely? He's legendary. Because in a world full of followers, the one who stands alone is often the only one truly in control. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me closely. We live in a time where people equate connection with security, but that's a lie. Because the truth is, the more people you let into your life without discernment, the more open you are to chaos, confusion, and compromise. A man with no friends, or with a very small intentional circle, is not weak. He is not lonely. He is dangerous. He is secure. He has chosen solitude over popularity, purpose over parties, vision over validation. Why? Because he understands that noise is the enemy of clarity. You can't build something solid when you're surrounded by shaky people. You can't grow when you're constantly managing other people's insecurities. You can't move in power when you're leaking energy into friendships that serve your comfort but not your calling. The man with no friends has mastered something that terrifies most people: self-trust. He doesn't need a crowd to clap for him. He claps for himself. He doesn't look around to see if it's okay to take the next step. He looks within and decides. That's power. Now let's be clear. I'm not talking about isolation from wisdom or mentorship. I'm not talking about cutting yourself off from accountability or community. I'm talking about this. Stop thinking that more people equals more strength. It doesn't. Security comes from control, and control comes from boundaries. When your circle is small, your decisions are clean. You don't have to explain yourself to 5 different people who don't understand your vision. You don't have to defend your ambition. You don't have to water yourself down to make everyone comfortable. Let me tell you what a small circle looks like. It looks like peace. It looks like focus. It looks like speed. It looks like power moves in silence. You see, a man with a very small circle doesn't just protect his space, he protects his energy. He knows that loyalty is rare, and he doesn't trade it for popularity. He's not trying to be everywhere with everyone. He's moving in alignment with destiny. Because when your life is full of purpose, you don't have time to entertain extra. Not everyone deserves access. Not everyone gets the keys. Some people are for the porch, not the penthouse. So if you're a man who walks alone, or a man with just 2 or 3 solid people in his life, hold your head high. You're not missing out. You're locked in. You're not disconnected. You're discerning. And that discernment is your armor. You are not alone because you're unloved. You are alone because you refuse to lower your standard for company. A man with no friends, or just a small, trusted circle? He is not lonely. He is not insecure. He is not weak. He is very, very secure. A man who walks alone learns to hear his own voice clearly. In the silence of solitude, away from the opinions, expectations, and demands of others, a man begins to encounter the raw, unfiltered sound of his own thoughts. Most people never experience this because their minds are filled with external noise, constant conversations, social media feeds, friendly advice that's really just disguised fear, and the subtle pressure to fit in. But the man who chooses solitude isn't running away from people. He's running toward his own power. He has made a decision to strip away the noise so he can face the only voice that truly matters, his own. In that space of silence, identity is not something borrowed. It's something built. Most people construct their sense of self like a collage. Bits and pieces of what others think, what their parents told them, what society expects, what their peers accept. But a man in solitude isn't editing himself to be liked. He's chiseling himself to be true. He begins to ask the hard questions that most people avoid. Who am I without the applause? Who am I when nobody's watching? What do I believe when no one is there to agree or disagree with me? In answering these questions, he gains clarity, not just about his preferences, but about his purpose. That clarity becomes the foundation for unshakable confidence. See, when you spend enough time alone, you stop needing the world to co-sign your decisions. You stop outsourcing your self-worth. You stop negotiating your standards just to keep people around. You become the man who moves because he's convicted, not because he's convinced by someone else. That kind of inner authority can't be faked. It can't be borrowed. It has to be built in the dark, when there's no crowd, no echo chamber, and no cheerleaders. Just you, your convictions, and your creator. Now let's be real. Solitude is not easy. It forces you to face the parts of yourself that companionship helps you hide. It reveals the insecurities you've masked with social status. It shines a light on your fears, your doubts, your inconsistencies. Most men avoid this because it's uncomfortable. But the man who chooses to stay in that discomfort long enough begins to master it. He stops fearing what he finds in the quiet. Instead, he uses it to grow. He sharpens his thoughts. He identifies his weaknesses. He strengthens his mindset. The very things that once haunted him in solitude become the tools that build his strength. When you walk alone, you begin to take full ownership of your choices. There's no one to blame, no one to lean on, no one to hide behind. You become the architect of your life, and that is what makes you secure. Not because everything is perfect, but because everything is yours, your decisions, your consequences, your process, your progress. You stop playing victim. You stop waiting for permission. You stop needing emotional babysitters to keep you stable. You are no longer dependent on the mood of the crowd to determine the motion of your life. Solitude also teaches you emotional discipline. When you're constantly surrounded by others, your emotions are constantly stimulated. You're reacting to what they say, what they do, how they feel. But when you're alone, there's no performance. There's no pressure to put on a mask. There's no expectation to entertain or be entertained. It's just you, and you learn to sit with your own emotions without suppressing them or spilling them everywhere. You learn to regulate your own mind. You learn to build your own peace. That is a rare strength. That is a quiet kind of power that doesn't need attention to function. A man who is comfortable with solitude becomes a fortress. People sense it. They can feel that he's not desperate for attention, not addicted to approval, not thirsty for validation. And that changes the way they approach him. He commands respect not because he's loud, but because he's rooted. People know they can't manipulate him with silence, can't guilt-trip him with absence, can't shake him with rumors. Why? Because he's already done the work alone. His self-worth isn't hanging on a thread of other people's opinions. His identity isn't on trial in the court of public approval. Eventually, that man becomes selective about who he lets into his space. He doesn't cut people off out of arrogance. He filters access out of wisdom. Because he knows what it cost him to build that peace, to gain that clarity, to hear his own voice. And he refuses to let anyone dilute it with drama, distractions, or dishonesty. Solitude taught him how to be whole, and wholeness gave him the strength to be free. Not free from people, but free from needing them to complete him. So while the world chases crowds, clout, and constant stimulation, the man who walks alone walks differently. He doesn't move fast just to keep up. He moves right to stay aligned. He doesn't need the whole world to like him. He just needs to be true to himself. That truth, that unshakable clarity forged in silence, is what makes him secure. Not the size of his circle, not the noise around him, but the strength within him. A small circle is not a sign of lack, it's a sign of intention. When a man chooses to surround himself with only a handful of people, it's not because he can't attract more, it's because he understands the value of peace, focus, and alignment. In a world that glamorizes being everywhere with everyone, the man with a small circle has made a quiet, powerful decision to prioritize depth over width. He knows that energy is currency, and he's no longer willing to spend it on people who bring no return. Every person in his circle has been chosen with care. They are not there by accident, convenience, or nostalgia. They are there by purpose. The fewer people around you, the fewer distractions you invite into your life. Every additional connection comes with a weight, whether it's emotional, mental, or spiritual. Some people come with their insecurities, their problems, their jealousy, or their gossip. Others come with hidden agendas, fake loyalty, and fragile egos that constantly need validation. When your circle is wide, you end up spending more time managing people than managing your purpose. You get caught in the politics of friendships, trying to keep everyone happy, trying to balance competing needs, and trying not to offend anyone. The man with a small circle doesn't have that burden. He's not stuck in the maze of social maintenance. He's free to focus on what truly matters: his mission, his mindset, and his momentum. A tight circle filters out the noise. There are fewer opinions clouding your judgment, fewer voices competing for your attention, fewer distractions pulling you off course. In that environment, clarity thrives. You're able to move forward without constantly second-guessing yourself. You don't need to run your vision through a committee of friends who don't understand it. You don't need 10 different perspectives that only leave you more confused. Instead, you hear from a few trusted people who genuinely know you, who want the best for you, and who speak from wisdom, not ego. When a man builds a small circle, he also builds trust. Not the kind of trust that comes from familiarity, but the kind that comes from earned loyalty. In a small circle, everyone has a role, everyone has earned their seat, and everyone understands the value of that bond. There's no need to pretend, to perform, or to prove yourself constantly. You're allowed to be real, because the people in your circle aren't there for what you have, they're there for who you are. That kind of environment allows a man to grow without the fear of being misunderstood, judged, or betrayed. There's also strategic clarity that comes with a small circle. Decisions are made faster. Goals are executed with more precision. Vision is protected from dilution. When too many people are involved, everything slows down. Everyone has an opinion, everyone has a preference, and not everyone has your best interest in mind. You end up in endless meetings, pointless debates, and ego-driven conflicts. The man with a small circle skips all that. He knows who he can trust. He knows who brings value. He knows who aligns with the vision. So instead of getting caught in emotional bureaucracy, he's able to move with speed and certainty. Another advantage is emotional stability. The more people you let into your life, the more you expose yourself to emotional turbulence. Different people come with different energies, moods, and emotional expectations. When you have a large circle, you end up managing more than just conversations. You end up managing people's feelings, their reactions, their assumptions. That's exhausting. But when your circle is small, you know what to expect. You know the emotional climate of the people around you. There's less volatility, less drama, less guessing. That stability allows you to keep your own emotions in check. You're not constantly thrown off by someone else's instability. You're grounded, focused, and calm. The small circle is also a filter for influence. Who you allow into your space influences how you think, what you value, and how you move. The wrong voices can talk you out of greatness. The wrong friends can normalize mediocrity. The wrong circle can hold you hostage to comfort. But the man with a small, intentional circle isn't exposed to that. He's surrounded by people who stretch him, sharpen him, and speak truth even when it's uncomfortable. He doesn't have to worry about fake encouragement or silent sabotage. The few people he keeps around him are aligned, loyal, and focused, just like he is. And finally, a small circle increases accountability. In a large group, it's easy to hide, easy to blend in, easy to avoid being challenged. But in a small circle, there's no hiding. Everyone sees your actions. Everyone knows your standards. Everyone holds you accountable. That level of transparency creates real growth. Not the kind that feels good, but the kind that produces results. The man with a small circle is constantly being refined, not by pressure from the outside world, but by the quality of the relationships he keeps. He's sharpened like iron sharpens iron, not dulled by endless noise. In that kind of environment, there's room to build something that lasts. There's room for focus to deepen, for loyalty to mature, and for purpose to unfold. It's not crowded, it's not chaotic, and it's not loud. But it's solid. It's clear. It's powerful. Because the man with a small circle isn't playing the social game, he's building something greater than friendship. He's building a foundation for legacy, grounded in trust, focus, and intentionality. Security does not come from being liked by everyone. It doesn't come from being popular, being known, or being surrounded by a crowd. True security comes from control. Control of your time, your energy, your environment, and most importantly, your decisions. A man with a very small circle, or even no friends at all, is often the one who has the most control over his life. He isn't pulled in 10 directions trying to meet everyone's expectations. He isn't sacrificing his priorities to please others. He's not afraid to say no. He's not afraid to disappoint people. He's not afraid to stand alone because he understands the difference between being alone and being controlled. A man who surrounds himself with too many people ends up carrying more than he realizes. Each connection brings a level of responsibility, spoken or unspoken. He starts to feel obligated to check in, to show up, to listen to everyone's issues. His schedule becomes less about what he wants to do and more about what others expect him to do. His goals take a back seat to his relationships. His vision gets blurred because he has too many voices speaking into his life, some helpful, some harmful, and most unnecessary. That man is not secure. He is distracted. He is overwhelmed. He is entangled in social debt. The man with a small circle doesn't have this problem. He has taken control by choosing quality over quantity. He's not interested in managing everyone's perception of him. He's not running a public relations campaign in his personal life. He's not living to impress. He's living to execute. He's not preoccupied with what everyone else is doing, thinking, or saying. His circle is small because he values clarity. He values simplicity. He values results. He understands that every person you keep close either strengthens your grip on your goals or loosens it. He is not afraid to be seen as distant or detached because he knows that emotional independence is not coldness, it's freedom. Control also means that he decides the emotional climate of his life. He's not constantly thrown off by someone else's crises. He's not babysitting other people's problems. He's not walking on eggshells trying to keep peace in a group that lacks alignment. That's because he's built an environment where emotional safety is protected, not drained. He doesn't engage in drama, gossip, or emotional manipulation because he doesn't give those things access to his space. He's not depending on group approval to feel grounded. He's built his peace from the inside out, so he doesn't need to constantly defend or prove it. Many people confuse popularity with safety. They believe that if more people know you, like you, or are connected to you, then somehow you are more secure. But in reality, the more people who know you, the more access points you create for betrayal, confusion, and weakness. A large network often becomes a net that traps you. You're tied to too many opinions. You're exposed to too many perspectives. And because you're trying to keep the peace, you start negotiating your standards just to maintain relationships. That's not strength. That's compromise. The man with a small circle doesn't deal with this. His standards don't change to accommodate people. People either rise to his level or fall off. There's no in-between. When a man controls his space, he controls his outcomes. He's not trying to build consensus. He's trying to build a future. He's not playing politics with his friendships. He's making moves. He doesn't have to explain his every decision, defend every move, or justify every pivot. Because the people around him either already understand the mission, or they're not close enough to interfere. That kind of control gives him the ability to pivot fast, execute decisively, and recover quickly. He's not slowed down by emotional negotiations or relational friction. His pace is not dictated by people. It's dictated by purpose. This kind of control also protects him from subtle sabotage. The truth is, not everyone in a big circle wants you to win. Some people smile in your face and secretly hope you fail. Others cheer for your past but fear your future. And many simply project their insecurities onto your journey. When your circle is too big, these threats are harder to detect. But when your circle is small, it's easier to spot misalignment. There's no room for jealousy, no space for manipulation, no opportunity for betrayal. The man with a small circle doesn't just protect his peace, he protects his progress. Control also breeds confidence. Not arrogance, not pride, but the calm assurance that comes from knowing you are steering your own ship. When you've filtered your environment, when you've curated your circle, when you've claimed full authority over your time and your space, you walk differently. You move intentionally. You think clearly. You no longer need to ask for permission to pursue what's yours. That's what makes a man secure. Not attention, not company, not applause, but the quiet, unshakable authority that comes from living on your terms. In a world obsessed with being seen, liked, and surrounded, the man who walks with few, or even none, walks in power. His solitude sharpens his identity. His small circle protects his peace. His control over his environment secures his progress. He's not avoiding connection, he's choosing intentionality. He's not antisocial, he's pro-purpose. While others chase noise, he cultivates clarity. While others depend on crowds, he depends on character. And while others seek validation, he lives by conviction. A man with no friends or a very small circle is not lacking. He is refined, focused, and free. Because true security doesn't come from who walks with you, it comes from how firmly you walk alone.